Mhm.
All righty. Hi, Dean and Kyle. Welcome to our Equity Unlocked New Ways to Build Wealth Zoom today. Just for you guys out there, is it verified that you guys are not AI and that you are real human beings and this is a live Zoom?
This is live.
This is live. So, I had the greatest compliment the other day. An agent was calling me regarding a short sale, delinquent, distressed short sale. And I gave her some advice on that because she was just, hey, I saw you guys got short sales. Tell me about that. And I said, you can always drop those prompts into Chat GBT. And you know what she told me? She said, you're better than Chat GBT.
There you
Oh,
go.
I want to extend that compliment to both you and Kyle. So Dean, intros and stuff like that. I'm going to say a little bit about you, but tell us about you and your background. But I'm going to give Dean the compliment that as far as luxury real estate here in the state of Hawaii, you are better than ChatGPT. And then for Kyle, as far as 1031 exchanges, wealth building, Delaware statutory trust, Kyle is better than ChatGPT. And
And
then for
tax strategies too.
and tax strategies better
Yes,
than
that's important.
ChatGPT,
Yes.
better than ChatGPT. And so this is live. This is not AI, and away we go.
Mhm.
Dean, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then right after that, we'll have Kyle tell us a little bit about himself, and then we'll go back to Dean.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you inviting me to be here today. I think it's a great forum and really excited to be here. Um, my name is Dean Otto, as Attilio mentioned. I live in Maui. I've been a real estate broker here in Maui for 34 years, which is probably longer than you all have been in real estate, I'm guessing. But
You got us beat. Adrienne and I, 20 years each.
it's nothing. You guys are rookies.
We're babies.
Rookies. But seen a lot, have been through all kinds of cycles, understand real estate and real estate investing really well. I've done a lot of it myself. I represent a lot of investors. And I think it's a great opportunity for me to share some of the things that we do to unlock equity, right? And as you know, I have, in addition to be a real estate broker, I also have a company called Cohana Homes, which specializes in co-ownership, meaning that we pull together and facilitate partnerships to purchase second homes. So I'm primarily a second home real estate broker in the luxury market for 34 years, and looking forward to sharing some of the experience that I've had, and looking forward to working with Kyle because it's such a big part of what we do is this relationship between 1031s and tax strategies. So I'm excited to meet Kyle as well.
Yeah. So we've known Kyle for a long time. He's also a graduate of some personal growth stuff called PSI that we've all gone through, makes us better versions of ourselves. And Kyle, you are with Impact Wealth Solutions. So tell us, who is Kyle? Who is Impact Wealth Solutions?
Yeah, so great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to hearing what Dean has to offer because I think this will tie in quite a bit. I do not sell real estate the way you guys sell real estate, right? So I'm
Yeah.
a wealth advisor, fiduciary. Impact Wealth is a boutique wealth advisory firm, so wealth managers, financial planning, and we specialize in the Delaware statutory trusts and the 721 UPREIT, which qualify in a 1031 exchange. More about that when it's my turn to talk, but I do securitize real estate, which qualifies as replacement property. So that's what I'll be talking about today. And I've been
Yeah.
doing this for 20 years. But yeah, I started when I was 12. So from Kauai, but live on Oahu now.
Yeah, local boy and stuff like that. And then the other thing I want to point out too is that you guys our audience will be hearing some buzzwords. So I'm going to be the buzzword police. And I totally ripped this off from another radio show podcast. I'm going to say, like, if you say upreats, I'm going to interrupt like a referee on the sideline, throw in a yellow flag and say, uh, could you tell us what is an upreat and unpack that for us? So I'll be the buzzword police so that our lay people that are watching in right now will be like, what does that mean? So back to you, Dean.
Sure.
The
Then
two cat. Yeah, go ahead,
before we get
Adrian.
into this, I see
Yeah.
that we have Dan and Mike here. And if you guys want to come off mute or type in the message, like what is most important to you guys? I know that we have some different wealth strategies, talking about unlocking equity,
Yep.
tax strategies, just being like super creative in our wealth building. If you have anything that's like really like a hot button for you, please, let us know and we can
Type it in
spend
the
more
chat.
time there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll be the buzzword police. Adrienne is going to be she's going to be the chat monitor. So if you guys have any
Awesome.
questions or at any time, what's cool about chat is you're not really rude or interrupting. You just type it in there.
That's right.
And Dan says unlocking equity, tax strategies, and all that good stuff. Okay.
Awesome, awesome. So, as I mentioned, I'm a second home broker here, real estate broker on Maui. And, the reality is, right, let's just face it, second home investing is probably the worst investment you can probably make in your life because, you're buying lifestyle, you're not buying, it's not as much of an investment to buy a second home as people would like it to be. And I think that's a big challenge for us as the market cools off, and as I mentioned in our last webinar, that the NAR came out with a fact that there's now 7 million buyers on the sidelines in our real estate market. Really interesting fact because there was only 4.1 million sales last year, right? So we have almost double the amount of buyers on the sidelines, waiting, watching, trying to make sense out of this market. And as markets cool off, second homes are the first impacted and people rush to the sidelines because no one really needs a second home, right? And so you're buying lifestyle, you're not going to get a great return on it. Even the best condos that are being purchased on Maui are generating a return of between 1 and 3% on a cash investment. So that if you have a loan on the property, you're running on a negative, right? So I think the question is, how do we make sense out of second home real estate and how do we unlock equity for people that own second homes who are sitting on non-performing assets? And I think one of the great solutions that we at Cohana Homes are chasing down right now is that we're dealing with a lot of people who really don't want to sell, right? And I love the conversation of talking to people, you're a real estate broker, and they're like, no, I don't want to sell. I don't want to sell. But love the conversation of we're not trying to get you to sell. I'm trying to find out whether you would consider taking on 3 partners and becoming a fourth partner in an LLC to own this property for a set period of time into the future, which is a partnership built into the front end with an agreement to sell together in the future, right? So it's like a regular real estate play with a partnership built into the front end of it. And I think what's important about that is that you have a huge amount of people in Hawaii that own second homes. I mean, it's almost like the biggest segment. On Maui, it's 99% of my market in luxury is selling to second homeowners. And there's all these people sitting on these second homes where expenses have gone through the roof, income has declined, occupancy rates are down. They're trying to figure out, what do I do with this? And my solution would be, it doesn't mean you have to sell. What it could mean is that you could take on 1 or 2 or 3 partners, right? And let me put it into practical sense what it means to a seller. If the seller has a $4 million home, and I can find them 3 partners to join them in owning that property in an LLC, that seller would get 3 of the $4 million back upfront, right? How does that is unlocking equity in your second home real estate, right? If that's not the purest definition of unlocking equity, I don't know what is, which is you're sitting on a home that you're not using 9 months a year. You bring in 3 or 4 partners to use the property during that unused time. You take 3 of your $4 million out. You call Kyle up with the $4 million and ask him to exchange it into a DST or whatever you choose to do it. But this is the perfect way for such a huge chunk of owners on Oahu and Maui and throughout Hawaii to uncork this equity that they're sitting on right now without giving up the lifestyle that they don't really want to give up, right? So you retain your asset, you still have your 3 months of use, you have 1/4 of the expenses, and what you've done is you've pulled out $3 or $4 million to go reinvest in something that's going to generate a return or it has a tax advantage to it to benefit you down the road. So that's one of the ways that we unlock equity with our clients. It's outside of the box. Most people aren't doing this. But it gives an owner sitting on a property that's sitting vacant for 9 months a year a chance to unlock and unleash that equity into an investment that's going to generate a return because we know that second homes are non-performing assets, right? So that's a good example of how we at Cohana Homes can unlock equity. We can help sellers keep their properties if they really don't want to sell, but we can relieve them of the issues that are causing them stress, which is debt and expenses primarily, right? So we can either give you 3 of your $4 million to go reinvest, or we can clear out all your debt and we can leave you with just 1/4 of the expenses moving forward. But that's making sense out of second homes, and there's no other way to do that, really, in my opinion, other than this is the way to unlock equity, in my opinion, without going through a regular sale, without people giving up their dream home that they don't
Yeah.
want to give up.
Uh-huh.
To me, that's interesting.
I think too, like people, we know that people are visual learners. We're all visual learners. If I were to ask you what kind of vehicle you have, the word of your vehicle is not coming up. It's a visual image that's popping up right now. So I have this visual, and just to kind of recap what you've talked about is you're partnering with other people, to explain these visuals that you guys have on your website and connect it with what you just said.
Right. Again, it's that's what we do is we search for these partners, right? In many cases, we're putting together partnerships of people who don't know each other, right? So there's a whole nother level of detail that goes into the agreement. But
Yeah.
basically, it's finding the partnerships, right? And which we work with other agents like the Lallies to find these co-owners, pull them together. We facilitate the creation of the LLC partnership. We have all the documents, right? And once we get the LLC created with these 4 members, or 2 to 4 members is really our sweet spot, we go through to number 2 and we actually purchase the property. LLC actually now is the purchaser, buys the property. And so then once we purchase the property, my company, Cohana Homes, stays on as the manager of the LLC. So we do all the budgeting, the bill paying, the calendar, who gets to use it when, how do you use it, how does a priority selection order work? We do all of that, which is number 3, enjoyment. It's literally a show up and enjoy experience because we take care of all of the hassles of ownership that bog people down, right? Paying the bills, dealing with repairs, dealing with cleanings, etc. And number 4 would be profit, right? Because ultimately, when you buy real estate, if you buy timeshare, nothing against timeshare, but it's really hard to resell timeshare and make money. It's
Yep.
also, history has proven that fractional is almost impossible to realize a profit on, and I can give you examples. But ultimately, whole ownership, regular real estate, is where you make or break real estate investing. The opportunity is in the regular real estate market. And so while we create partnerships, we always have an agreement in these LLCs to sell together in the future so that we can stay in the lane of whole ownership and not get into the timeshare and fractional world. So it's an interesting.
Hit on that real quick, because every time Adrienne and I we talk about this to like hundreds of people. Like we have a couple properties where we talk to people on this. They all say the same thing. It sounds like timeshare. It sounds like fractional
ownership. Yeah.
Can you go deep on why this is not fractional ownership and why this is not a timeshare?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with an LLC, it's a single entity owner of the property, right? And the LLC format gives us a little flexibility in how to create the rules and regulations around how this is going to work. But ultimately, fractional as the alternative, which is very similar to fractional, but fractional would be for deeded interest to a property with a specific time period attached to it, right? So you're sort of you're locking in on a specific time, and you're locking yourself in as one of 4 owners on the deed to this title. Now that has caused a lot of complications with friends and families who have partnered up together to buy real estate together, only because there's less flexibility on how you're getting out of it, and it's also less upside potential based on history with reselling fractional, right? So timeshare is a completely another world, right? You don't actually have any sort of title rights to the property. You have points and systems that basically specialize in use. This is a legitimate real estate investment and a legitimate real estate play where LLC buys a property and then LLC sells the property in the future. But there's no breaking it up into pieces. It's
So
one
what you're
entity,
saying,
one
Dean,
owner.
is the marketing strategy for these types of properties, you're not giving out free luau tickets to come watch a 90-minute presentation with a hard closer.
If you have to close that hard, there's a problem. In my opinion, if you got to give stuff away to close them, that's something wrong, right? They got the wrong model, And look, there are people that do love timeshare and it works really well, and they use it for their entire lives and never give it up, and that's great.
Yeah.
It's trying to get out of these deals. That's the problem. And in any partnership that we run into, the first question is, how do we get out of it? Number 1. Number 2 is, what happens if something breaks or someone doesn't pay their bills, or who's going to be the person to call around and figure out who broke what and who's paying and how's that going to work? That's number 2. Those are the two reasons why people don't do partnerships. And we basically, that is the fundamental, function that we do.
Dean, it's interesting that you mentioned this because here's human nature. We have a divorce rate that's probably 60%. And if you all can't stay in a personal relationship, just imagine a very formalized business relationship.
Right.
What is the breakout rate? So you guys are like you're like the couples therapist for business partners. You're keeping the partnership, managing the expectations, keeping it clear.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
The way that I explain it visually is like if you show up to the house and you want a big salad bowl full of green M&Ms in the entryway, Dean and his team will make sure that you have a big salad bowl full of green M&Ms. And then if you're the next partner and you like unicorn pictures everywhere, the salad, maybe you want the green M&Ms, but then you want unicorn pictures everywhere. Your team is going to get that set up so that they walk in and they have their individual private experience of that property.
Right.
And if you want to know the other people, great. And if you don't, you never do.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I don't use the unicorn example. I always use the family photos on the mantle.
Family photos.
Family photos will be on the mantle.
Unicorn is in the picture with the family, but you
But
get
no,
make it super demonstrative to make the point in that you create an experience for the person
Exactly
that's
right.
individual to their time at the property.
100%.
Dean, you also have a special relationship with this third home. And
Correct.
especially with all of our laws that have been changing on the short-term rentals, now it's the minimum 90 days. Maybe touch on that a little bit because I think
that's a great.
interesting.
Thank you. I forgot about that part because that's really a great value add that we bring to the table too, right? So let's just say, we're four members in an LLC who purchased the property, and we get 3 months of use each, right? As a 25% owner, that gets divided into 3 1-month increments, and there's a selection process for each month. So, it's 1-month increments spread throughout the year is how it works, right? Now, if you're only using 2 of your 3 months, let's just say, and you're not going to be able to come over to Hawaii on your 3rd month, you have the option of submitting that unused time to the Third Home Exchange. And Third Home is a very, very successful and very popular home exchange company. So you could submit one of those months into the Third Home Exchange, and that would allow you to use one of their 40,000 homes around the world for that 1-month period that you gave up in your house for someone else in the program to use, right? So they're vetted by the fact that they already own homes similar to what we have, and they get into the program. But just submitting unused time into the exchange for someone to use or not use gives you the right to use one of the 40,000 homes around the world. So what we do is we allow
Dean,
people
real quick,
to only invest.
Is it thirdhome.com?
It's thirdhome.com.
Okay,
Look
gotcha.
at it. It's an amazing, amazing business that you can do regardless of whether you're part of the Cohana program or not. Because ultimately, if you're sitting on a house that's not being used, you can leverage that home to go use other homes around the world. And what's great about this is it's not a financial transaction. It's not renting. There's no tax consequence. It's just a straight up home exchange that works really well for homes that are sitting vacant around the world. And you can go to. I'm looking at a trip to Africa on a third home, and I think that would be an amazing opportunity for someone. When you think about that person that's sitting on a mega property in Honolulu that uses this property 2 months a year, pays bills for the other 10 months a year, but doesn't use it. That's a very normal situation in my world, right? And now you have the opportunity of not paying the $4 million to use it 2 months a year. They have the opportunity to pay 1 million and use it for 2 months a year. But you also have the ability to exchange your unused time, leveraging that asset to go travel anywhere in the world. It's an amazing opportunity, right? Real value to a buyer to only have to invest a portion of the investment and use it when you want and leverage it to go around, travel around the world when you want. But I think that's the kind of thing that people are looking for now. They want more value. They want more options.
People
they
want
want more out of
experiences.
this investment.
Yeah, people want experiences. There's a book called How to Die with Zero, written by a guy named Bill Perkins. And he sums it up in that life, the meaning of life to him in the book is that it's a stringing together of a bunch of positive experiences. And owning a second home, initially, it's kind of like that deck on the second story of your home or that pool. It was cool when you bought it. And after a while, you've never been in the pool and you've never been on that upper second floor deck in 6 months. And so talk about what you're finding is the number one because you guys came up with this because the number one or just correct me if I'm wrong, what is the number one reason why people end up getting rid of the second home?
Yeah, so the number one, yeah, that's a good point. It's the expenses. The
Yeah.
expenses are through the roof. It's crazy right now. If you look at insurance costs over the last 5 years, if you look at maintenance fees, property taxes, man, if you bought 10 years ago, your expenses have like doubled. It's crazy, right? And there's not enough income to offset that. Vacation renting is not the most like the sexiest option right now for these owners because they can't generate enough money to pay their expenses. So they're buying into a negative, right? That's a tough sale right now in a market that's declining. When the market's skyrocketing up, it's easy sale. But
Yeah.
when the market stalls, that becomes really hard, right? And so we've sort of gone outside of the box a little bit to try to find ways to address, I'm a problem seeker, right? You find the problem, then you can find the answer. So the problem seeker says, there's two reasons why people don't buy in Hawaii right now if you're a second homeowner. One is you can't use it enough to justify historical prices. And then the second one is the expenses are so high that it doesn't pencil out anymore.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've looked for the problems and we've come up with a solution that shares expenses, that gets rid of debt, that allows you to use it when you use it, but it allows you to exit in the whole ownership world just like any other investment. It's a legitimate real estate play when you have an agreement to sell together in the regular market, right?
Yeah.
So you can put all this cool stuff into the front end of it, but you exit in a regular market where you hope to where you hope to realize appreciation. And that's really how we make sense out of investing in second homes. We have the partial, ownership option. We have third home that you can use. It's really creating value for people to buy these second homes. And it doesn't have to be an owner who doesn't want to sell and just we're getting partners for that owner. It's an option to sell real estate on the open market, just like any other real estate. So with the Atilios, we have properties listed for sale that they're trying to sell, and we're running a parallel marketing effort, to see if we can find
It's
four $1
not, yeah,
million
it's
dollar
not
buyers.
instead of, it's at
Yeah,
the same time.
it's an
Together,
option,
yep, in
right?
parallel.
Yeah, well, because we have a listing, $4 million beachfront listing on Sunset Beach, one of the top 10 most world famous beaches in the world on the 7 Mile Strip. And it's interesting, it's listed at 4 million, but we're able to go to people at 1,050,000 or people at 4 million because those are two different people. But I think, Dean, what you're doing is you're taking that $4 million buyer and you're telling them, why do you want to dump your 4 million into this one plot? If you're a surfer, why not go get that beachfront one in Costa Rica? Go get that beach one front in Sardinia. Go get that $1 million thing in whatever. And then if you're a surfer, because Dean, are you a surfer? I felt
Oh
like you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, how about you just travel, you get your 4 different $1 million beachfront properties and you follow the surf around the
Yeah,
world,
absolutely.
right?
That's a great idea, but that's the truth, right? I mean, that's what
Yeah.
it is, really. It's for keeping your equity, keeping your cash, keeping your gunpowder so that you can go invest in multiple things
Yeah.
and not lock in on just one property. Because the other reason that people don't buy second homes is because if you buy a $4 million home mega property on Maui, you may feel obligated to have to go to Maui every time you go on vacation, right? So we're
Yeah.
trying to free people up to do more, to keep their equity, to invest more. I'll give you one example before I turn it over here. And I'm working with a gentleman on Kauai. He's looking
Yeah.
at one of our listings on Kauai. It's a $6 million property. We have 25% interest for 1.5 million. He saw the listing. He called us on it and go, what's this all about? And I said, well, what's your situation? Talk to me for a minute. And he said, well, I'm looking to buy a $6 million house in Spain and then a $6 million house in Kauai. And I live in San Francisco. So he was looking to spend $12 million, right? So I said to him, I said, well, what about if you just bought the 3 month, 25% interest on the Kauai property, which is 1.5 million, and then use it for 2 months a year and use that third month in the third home exchange and go to Spain every year on vacation. So, here's a case where a guy was going to spend $12 million to get what he really wanted. We've provided him an option for 1.5 million that gives him exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of the interesting part of what we do here. And again, for him, the exit in the whole ownership, like regular real estate, was critical to him because he wanted it to be a legitimate investment. He wanted to realize appreciation. So he didn't want to buy timeshare, didn't want to buy fractional. But to recognize the opportunity to leverage a 25% interest in a Kauai home and save him a whole lot of money is pretty significant. We just made a serious fan with that gentleman. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm showing you guys price points. I mean, you guys are
We have, yeah, that one for 50 million right there is on Kailua, right? Is in
yeah.
Kailua. We
Yeah.
actually have two parties interested in that right now, which is
Hmm.
really cool. $12.5 million, 25%
Well,
interest.
I
These
call,
guys
you
were
know what I
both,
call this? Hold on, Adrian. This is the difference between The Rock Johnson and Jason Momoa. If you guys are tracking
mhm.
their wealth, Jason Momoa might be able to afford co-ownership, but for a damn spanky, he's not going to be able, sorry, Jason, he's not going to be able to afford the whole pie.
yeah.
But The Rock can buy the whole thing, and maybe The Rock doesn't want to buy the whole thing either because he's all over the world.
The Rock's business manager is going to go, what are you, crazy?
Yeah.
How much time can you spend there and how
Well,
much is it going to cost? I mean, that's what it is,
we've
right? So
we've covered quite a bit, and I'm curious if our visitors have any kind of questions. There's just been like
Type
a
them in
lot
the
of information that's been dumped about like just there's a lot.
Yeah, if
So
anybody's got any questions, please let us know.
yep.
We'll
And
carry on.
then we're at about halfway in, so I think that we should also be tying this into some tax strategies and what to do once you unlock equity. Like how do you avoid those capital gains taxes? Like, what do you do with this money that you're able to unlock after you do this ownership?
Yes, Kyle.
Well, I have a lot of questions for Dean, but I'll save that for a one-on-one. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, you
very.
can have a piece of that Oahu North Shore property. Yeah,
Do it, Kyle.
absolutely.
Do it. You know
Yeah.
you want to be there.
No, really interesting concept and a lot of applications that tie into what I do and some of my clients and actually I just think I have a good friend that has a second home and yeah, I gotta put you in contact with him. So um
Awesome.
yeah, so a little background on me. I have a presentation actually, and I'll pull that up in a second. But
Yeah,
Tilly, thanks for sharing that. Um,
sure.
Agent Till, if you want to talk a little bit about your experience, we've worked
Yeah,
together in
our
the
personal
past, and
experience.
you guys have done a 1031 exchange. So maybe just share your personal experience, and then
It,
I'll get into the nitty-gritty stuff.
yeah, it's like that commercial for the men's hair club. Not only am I the member of the men's hair club, I'm the president and I use the product. So we use the product is the point that we're making. So for Adrian, do you want me to tell your story? Do you want to tell your story about your condo and
Sure.
give them the bullet points movie trailer version?
Yep. So I had a condo that was pretty much fully depreciated, and my credit wasn't the best. I was going through a divorce at the time, and so I just thought I just was going to have to pay all these taxes, and I couldn't do the 1031 exchange. I ended up meeting Kyle's wife, Lori, at a personal development seminar, PSI Basic, and she said, "Oh no, my husband, he can help you." And I didn't believe her, but lo and behold, he could. So I ended up doing the 1031 exchange into a DST. DST had multiple storage facilities throughout the United States. And after doing that, I was actually making a lot more money on like the profits than I was on the condo. I think it was like it started out with like maybe a 6 or 7% cap rate, and it continued to rise. And then even one year, they're like, "Oh, we didn't pay you enough. Here's an extra $7,000." And there was no headache. The money just shows up in my account. I don't have to worry about tenants turning over or any kind of renovations or upgrades. None of that. Also, still got the same kind of tax benefits, the depreciation through the DST. So it's been a great tool, and yeah. And then I did it again when we did a 1031 exchange, and we had a boot. So I was like, oh, I don't want to have to pay taxes on this leftover money. So we put it into a different DST, and again, we get our monthly income statements from
Yeah.
that as well. Yep.
Yeah, and then just for the reason why I removing the spotlight there is I personally want to do this is because I have children and more importantly, I still like them. And I did a post on LinkedIn, and the post was basically leaving your children real estate is the form of child abuse. And it's a funny haha thing, but the reason being is that I have three kids, and if I left on my real estate portfolio, Not one of them has the skill set to manage these assets or the motivation or the desire. And I will tell you, there is no two human beings on the planet that is going to be in consensus forever and ever and ever as far as independent goals and priorities. So for me, I'm going to be handing over my real estate portfolio in the form of a DST, so that each child can decide, do I want to sell my stuff because I want to send my grandkid to Yale? That's one of my dreams. Do I want to keep it because I just want to continue building wealth? But they're handing them the financial real estate wealth and receiving the benefits of the income and the growth without all the headaches of direct management or being tied in to a property and having to be in consensus to get rid of it. So that's my personal story on why I'm involved with it and why I like doing it. But continue on, Kyle.
All right, so I'm gonna condense my 60-minute version of this topic into like 20 minutes.
Nice.
And we're for the most part, we're going to talk about some tax strategies for capital gains. I'm going to hone in and focus on just one. That's a Delaware Statutory Trust, also known as a DST. But there's other things that are available within my toolbox. But for today, just focusing on the DST. And I'm going to take a step back. I know Adrienne and Attilio mentioned how they plan to use it and the strategies down the road. I'm going to dial it back just a second to kind of bring people up to speed, and then I'll show you how kind of Adrienne and Attilio have used it personally and some other examples as well. And so let's see, can you guys see my screen here?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. I have to put this here, right, just on the screen and explain that I'm not providing tax or legal advice. This is for educational purposes only. Please talk to your professionals, your own personal professionals, to get more insight into the topics discussed today, or reach out to me directly and I can share more with you. A little background on us. INPAC Wealth, we started in 2013. We have offices on every island and an office in California, Nevada, and as far as Pittsburgh. We work with investors all over the country. So we're licensed in all states. So we can help investors. Definitely if you're an investor in Hawaii, a real estate investor in Hawaii, we can help you here. But if you have property elsewhere, we can help you as well. And we've been doing Delaware Statutory Trust since 2016. And as of this year, we are the largest provider of DSTs in Hawaii. We're top 3 in the country, right? So we're the small little shop in Hawaii that does a ton of business. And kind of how we went down that path is, as financial advisors, wealth managers, we do financial planning. And for most people, that's getting to a place where they can live off of their hard-earned money, all their property, right? All the income is generating. And what we started to find was majority of people's wealth was locked up in the real estate. So they're looking for alternative ways to create a retirement income stream. And we kind of stumbled upon the DST, and it's become a large part of our overall financial planning and retirement planning strategy. So in general, in our industry, and you guys may know this if you work with advisors, is we're all kind of siloed and we all kind of do our own thing, right? You've got the realtor, the mortgage broker, the financial advisor, the banker, the CPA, the attorney, and it's up to you to kind of coordinate all the plans and the strategies and make sense of it. Yet you're kind of quarterbacking everything for yourself. And what we feel as a firm is bringing all the people together cohesively, coming up with a plan that's cohesive, and we map it out and we help you quarterback the plan and the strategies so that you can stay compliant and within the rules of the law. So more context to this, right? The baby boomer, right? The largest transfer of wealth is occurring right now as the baby boomer generation is passing on their wealth. 70% of the wealth resides in 2 major assets. That's real estate and qualified investments. That's their 401ks and IRAs. Now, and this is nationally. This is done by Texas Tech University. I would argue in Hawaii, this number is probably a little bit different, right? That their net worth, the largest part of the net worth, is in real estate, probably more like 50, 60, maybe even 70% in some cases, right? It could have been auntie that bought the property for $100,000 30 years ago, and now it's worth over $1 million. Right. So that's the things that we're looking at when we're designing financial retirement plans, is looking at their net worth. Now, people that own investment property, right? These are some of the issues. Dean kind of touched on some of this, and so did Adrienne Attilio, is, as a property gets older, right? You can depreciate it over time, but after 27 and a half years, your depreciation runs out on a residential property, 39 years on a commercial property. So what happens is you don't have that tax deduction. So taxes go up means income goes down. And then as a property ages, you've got to fix not just the small things, but the big things like the roof and the plumbing. I have a property in Kamaki, and it was built in 1920. And I'll tell you, it cost me anywhere from $10,000 per year to fix up and maintain that property. So it gets pretty expensive over time. And then people get tired of being a landlord and dealing with the terrible T's. All right, we'll touch on this a little bit more. This is the tenants, the toilets, the trash, the tsunamis, the termites, right? We got a lot of calls after that tsunami scare a couple months ago. It's like, hey, I don't know if it's worth holding on to this property. Right? It's becoming more of a headache than a blessing. And people want to focus more on the terrific T's. They want to spend time with the kids, the grandkids. They want tea times on the golf course or pickleball, right? So they want to focus on the terrific T's, not the terrible T's. Yeah. And then they want to maximize their real estate value. And it was great listening to what Dean has to offer is how do we unlock that equity in there and minimize the taxes and the expenses, right? So looking at ways to unlock that. And then Attilio mentioned, right, the estate planning, right? You've got three kids, right? We see this all the time in financial planning and estate planning. You've got one kid that is, financially responsible. He read Rich Dad Poor Dad. He wants to buy property, hold on to it, rent it out, get the appreciation on the income. Then there's the other kid that wants to just sell it all, cash out, and go blow it on in Vegas. And there's a third kid that's already living there rent free, right? So you force them into partnership together when you're gone, right? And they all have different views on what to do with it.
There's a fourth party, and that's when HBD shows up at their little family reunion, their dysfunctional family reunion.
Yeah, and that could be all that same kid, right? So yeah, if you want to like Attilio said, I think that meme is kind of funny, right? It's like, if you want to see your kids fight, leave them property, right?
Yeah.
So,
yes, leaving. Here is what I posted. Leaving, and Troy said it at the last presentation, and I turned it into a meme and posted it. But yeah, leaving your kids real estate is a form of child abuse.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I'll say this. Real estate is one of the best ways to accumulate wealth and transfer wealth. But how you transfer it is very important, right? So I'm not saying get rid of all of it, cash out, pay all the taxes. I'm going to show you where you can stay in real estate, just a different type of real estate.
Different strategy.
You get all the benefits of continuing to own real estate, the appreciation and the income. But when you transfer it, right? When you transfer it, your children, grandchildren still get the step up in basis, but now they don't have to fight. They can do their own thing, right? So they still get to maintain a family. You get all the same benefits of owning that real estate. And then there's this need for more income. I think it was Dean that had mentioned this, like the typical income in Hawaii for real estate is what, 1 to 3%? Yeah. If you don't have a mortgage, right?
Correct.
So, I'm going to show you an actual example, right? This is a property in Kaka'ako, right? 2025 valuation, 1.45 million. There's a mortgage on this property, so their equity left over is $850,000. So my financial mind looks at this as, what is that $850,000 doing? Now they've got gross rent income of $4,300. They've got all these expenses, so their net is negative $141 per month, or negative $1,692 per year. Now I would say for most people in Hawaii, this is kind of a win, right? To be like just a little bit negative. Right. I mentioned some years I'm like negative $20,000 depending on how much expenses I have. So now my financial hat on, I look at this as net income, right? Negative divided by net equity, 850,000. We're at a negative 0.19%. Now, Attilio, if you came to me with $850,000, said, Kyle, can you invest this for me? And I said, I can get you a negative 0.19% today.
Yeah, sign me up right now. Give me all of it. Yes, I need that.
Yeah. But see, this is okay in Hawaii because we get the appreciation, right? And where the goal is, we reduce the expenses by paying off the mortgage. But what we're fighting against is the taxes and insurance and other expenses going up as we're paying down that mortgage. So best case scenario, let's say that mortgage is paid off. So now we've got net equity of 1.45 million, no principal and interest payment, right? Now we're positive $23.88 a month, or positive $28,000 a year. This would be a slam dunk in Hawaii, okay? And we do the math. Positive 28,656 divided by the 1.45 million, we're in that range, the 1.98%, which is pretty good, right, for Hawaii. And then if you take into account the appreciation of about, let's call it 5% a year, 5 plus, let's call it 2%, 7% total return, pretty good. But what we got to think about is, and Adrienne Attilio, all the real estate people on this, maybe you can chime in here, is we've seen a ton of appreciation in Hawaii real estate over the last 5 years. What is the likelihood that we're going to continue to see that kind of growth over the next 5 or 10 years? Right?
Well, I
We
mean,
don't know.
well, Kyle, I would say on the condo market, the maintenance fees increasing due to
Insurance.
That is not necessarily the case, right? Like people are getting nervous when you have those increased maintenance fees, put that downward pressure. And yeah, and just as far as like with the interest rates coming up, we've also seen some flattening. I think as the interest rates continue to come down, we will see that growth, but I don't know that it's going to be at the 5%.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little lower than that, if that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that we're probably looking at maybe potentially, zero appreciation for the next 3 to 5 years. There's a good possibility. If you look at the cycle, right, the big picture, we peaked in 2021, right? No one argues that. So that means that we're now 4 years later in what has been over the last couple cycles in a 15-year cycle, right? 1990, if you go peak to peak, 1990 to 2005, 2006 to 2021, 15 years. So we're in year 4 of a 15-year cycle, which is literally the bottom of the market. And until we get to 2029, it's a good chance that we're not going to realize any appreciation based on the history of this cycle that's very consistent over the last 2 cycles. So anyway, that was a lot of information about nothing, but there's a good chance that we're going to have very little to no apprioappreciation for the next 3 years.
Or even like negative in the condo market.
And it'll be negative.
How much? We've had there's like some CPR homes in Eva Beach where our owner bought the home at the peak, $900,000 loan. We're now at $725,000. And so it's like it just really depends on, I think, the part of the island, family, if it's single family CPR, condo. Like, there's just a lot of variables.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for chiming in. That's exactly good for me to hear. Again, I'm not in the real estate business like you guys, so it's good to look at that, right? As what is your net income on your investment as a percentage, right? And then what's the possibility for appreciation going forward? Like, does this investment make sense, right? And once you've analyzed, the answers to those questions, is you can keep the property and continue going, right? And wait for that other cycle. Leave it to your kids. They get a step up in basis, right? And then they deal with it however they're going to deal with it, right? Or maybe you can sell, pay the taxes, a ton of taxes. So you got to take that into consideration. Does it make sense to pay all the taxes now? Or we sell and do a 1031 exchange and look for alternatives? Maybe it's buy another single family home or another condo with lower expenses, better income. Or the alternative, which I'll talk about in a second, is the Delaware Statutory Trust. But before I get there, I just want to touch on this real quick. Some of you that are on the call, you've probably heard of this or done this before, right? Section 1031 of the IRS code allows you to sell an investment property and replace it with another investment property, right? And as long as you replace equal or greater value, you get to defer the taxes, right? We call it swap till you drop. You can keep swapping properties until you pass away, and then your beneficiaries, they get a step up in basis, meaning that if you bought it for $100,000, it's worth $1 million. If you sell it while you're alive, right, and don't do an exchange, right, you pay all those taxes, right? But if you continue to swap till you drop and tend to an exchange or hold on to that property, your children or grandchildren get a step up to the basis upon your date of death, right? Let's call it $1 million, and they could sell it the very next day and pay 0 taxes, keep all of that equity. So this code allows one of the best ways to continue to accumulate wealth and then transfer it later on, right? But how we transfer it is important as we discuss. Now, timeline is very important. We've got 45 days to identify. So after you sell your investment property, you've got 45 days to identify your replacement and 180 days to acquire it. Okay. Now, Dean had mentioned something like 7 million buyers, but only 4 million sales roughly last year, right? To me, that sounds like tight equity or your tight inventory right now, right? So a lot of the reason why we see people kind of sitting on the sidelines holding on to their investment property because they don't think, and they're right, that there is something they can replace with in this market. So here's where alternatives like a DST may be useful because we almost always have them in inventory. Yet I will tell you, over the past 6 months, our inventory goes goes away very quickly, meaning that we have so many people selling property, exchanging into things like DSTs, that we are starting to come up to a inventory issue. We're still okay. If someone called me today, Kyle, I'm on my 44th day. I got to identify by tomorrow. Do you have anything? We can still place it and we can close by next week, yet we can see that market starting to tighten as well. So, couple misconceptions, just to lay some more context is, again, if you were doing a 1031 exchange, you bought the property for 200,000, you sell for 900,000, and you had a mortgage balance of 300,000, that means you have $600,000 left. Some people think, well, I only need to replace or exchange that 600,000. Not true. You have to replace equal or greater value of what you sold for. So if you sell for 900,000, it doesn't matter what your mortgage balance is. You have to find a replacement for 900,000. So that's the number we're looking at. And again, you can back out commissions, closing costs, and all of that. And then some people think, well, I bought it for 200,000. That's my cost basis. Can I just take that out and just exchange the rest? No, if you want to defer your capital gains tax, you have to still replace all of it. So your cost basis and all your gains have to go into the replacement, all 900,000. Okay. Now you have to replace like kind, which means you have to go from investment to investment. Does not mean you have to go from apartment to apartment or single family home to single family home. You can go into a condo, a duplex, an apartment building, land, or you can go from land to an apartment building, right? Or you can go into a Delaware statutory trust or a 721 UPREIT. Again, I'm only going to focus on the DST today because of the time, but these are all your options. So what is a DST? It allows for fractional ownership, not like a
Ownership.
timeshare. Okay, it's not like a timeshare, but you are a fractional ownership, like a 0.1%, 0.089%, but you're alongside 500 other accredited investors. Now, what an accredited investor is an individual that makes $200,000 or more in income, or a couple that makes $300,000 or more in income, or $1 million of net worth, excluding their primary residence. So it's income or net worth. So if Auntie has that one investment property worth $1 million and no mortgage, and she has no other assets, she qualifies as an accredited investor. It's just on paper, net of mortgages and excluding your primary residence, $1 million or more. And if anyone's interested, you can look up IRS Revenue Ruling 2004-86, right? 2004 or 2004 is a year that it was written into the rule book. So it's been around for over 20 years. It's not something that was just we came up with last year. It's been around for quite a bit of time. It's just becoming more popular nowadays because so many people are selling highly appreciated properties and looking for alternatives to exchange their funds into. It's filed with the SEC. Minimum investment is between 100,000 and 250,000. So, like Adrienne had mentioned, she sold a property in Florida. It was what was it, like 200,000 or 300,000 when you sold it, Adrienne? Yeah, and she had a mortgage on that property. Yeah.
The numbers, Adrienne?
Yeah, I sold it for about like 240, 250, and then it was about 110,000 that came into DST, and then there was like a debt match. And I think like at the highest amount, I was getting like $750 a month passive income from that. Yep.
And I would have said it would have been difficult at that time and given your circumstances to find a replacement for that amount and get qualified for a new mortgage. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because your credit had taken a hit because of the divorce, so you couldn't qualify. And so this was and I think a lot of it too with Dean and Kyle, what you guys are sharing, this is just information that's always been around. It's just most people aren't aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Potential benefits of DST, there's quite a bit, and I realize I'm butting up on my time and I haven't even got to the examples. But I'll just kind of fly through some of these quickly. So access to institutional quality property, right? These are the types of properties that we have investments in, and they can range from 20 million to 600 million. And you can have as little as your $100,000 invested in there alongside other investors. ESPN's headquarters, Verizon's headquarters, Zurich Insurance headquarters are actually in DSTs. So there's people like you and I, people on the call that have $100,000 in, and they are the landlords to Verizon Wireless. So they get income from their tenant every single month. No management responsibility. It's all handled by the DST sponsor, right? You just get the check, like Adrienne mentioned, every single month. No more worrying about the terrible T's. Focus on the terrific T's. Diversification, right? Let's say you sell a $3 million apartment in Makiki or in Florida, right? Minimum investment is 100,000. We can diversify. So you can go from owning one apartment unit to owning 3 asset classes in 3 different states with your 300,000, right? 100,000 into each. Limited personal liability. This is a whole nother presentation, but I'll kind of show you the main one, which is a non-recourse loan, which is how we're able to help Adrienne with her transaction. So we'll go back to that example. Property worth 900,000, mortgage of 300,000, equity left 600,000, right? Again, if you sell and do a 1031 exchange, you have to replace that entire 900,000, but you only have 600,000 left over. So your loan to value is 33%. So we have DSTs that have debt on it, that have loan to value on purpose because we work with investors that also have debt on their relinquished property. So we were able to identify a DST that has a 50% debt on it. So the sponsor goes out and puts debt on the property, but because they are the lien holder, right? They are the one that's responsible for the loan. You do not have to qualify for the loan, so you can receive all the benefits of the debt on paper without all the responsibilities, okay? And again, that's a whole nother conversation for later. Reach out to me if you want to learn more. But with that $600,000 of equity, it's matched by the DST sponsor's debt on paper. So the investor exchanges their 600,000 in. They pick up $600,000 of beneficial interest of debt from the sponsor. So on paper, the investor owns 1.2 million on paper. So they've exchanged 900,000 out. They own 1.2. They've replaced greater value. Their income will only be based off of the equity portion, but now we've been able to do a full exchange and defer the capital gains taxes. Estate planning. We mentioned those 3 kids, right? One wants to keep, one wants to sell, one wants to live in the property or is already living in the property, right? When you transfer the DST assets, each kid can do exactly what they want. Kid number 1 can hold onto the fractional ownership, continue to receive income. Child number 2, sell off their interests, take the money, go to Vegas. The 3rd kid won't have a place to live. That's the only unfortunate part. He's not able to go move into Verizon's headquarters, right? However, he can take that income and pay for his rent, pay for a mortgage, or cash out and buy something with it. So they can all go their separate ways. There's no fighting, no decisions to do after that at that point. And as I mentioned, we always have things in inventory. So if someone is in their 45 days and needs to find a replacement, right, we can fulfill that for them. Ideally, talk to us before selling so we can help find that replacement ahead of time, right? And so for some people, it does sound too good to be true, but there are risks, right? In real estate, these are all the risks, whether you own a single family home, luxury, second home, right? These are all the risks you have to deal with. with a DST, you have all those same risks because again, these are physical properties on the mainland. You're a fractional owner, but in addition to all those traditional risks, you do not have control over what happens to the property, the management, nor when it sells. So you're fully a passive investor.
Hey, Kyle, you mentioned fractional owner, but it really sounds more like you are a co-owner because you're in part of that LLC, right? Because you can't really sell your fraction. I mean, I guess you could, but it's like at a negative.
Well, you could in some cases a negative or positive. Like I
Yeah,
would say, Adrian, your ownership in your DSC people would probably pay a premium for it because yours is doing very
yeah.
well. Yeah, so it
But
just depends.
typically it's all like bought, like it's all sold together. That's part of the exit strategy.
Correct.
Like, okay, in 5 to 7 years, we are all selling together and we're all going to benefit the most by just everybody just reading. But you can
Correct.
like swap your place out with someone else.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, Kyle, also, I know that we're coming to the end. We've got about 3 minutes. Um, as far as like, I know that you've also helped one of our clients, the older man, he's got a lot of equity in his owner occupant home, right? And he only has that $500,000 exclusion, and he was looking at over like $1 million in the capital gain side. Can you briefly touch on that? Because some of these people that we had invited, they have investment properties. They also have a lot of equity in their owner occupant, and there are solutions, right, on how to tax strategize with this extra money in your owner occupant.
Mm-hmm.
I know you don't have a presentation, but let's just like, there is solutions.
You're talking about Mr. Kailua?
Yes, Mr. George, our 95-year-old seller.
Yeah, very interesting. And fortunate, unfortunate, the timing is his wife had just passed away, right? So he bought the property a long time ago, and let's call it, cost basis of about 800,000, right? He bought it for 550,000, put 300,000 in, so his basis 850. It's worth about 2.6, right? So it's way up there. Okay, so it's a ton of gain, but it was owned tenants in common between him and his wife. His wife passed away. She gets a step up in basis on her half. Okay, so that gets stepped up. So let's call it 1.3 million gets stepped up. Okay, on her half. Now his half is still exposed to capital gains. Because his wife just passed away, there's another part of the IRS code, section 121, right, which is a homeowner's exclusion that if you sell your primary residence and you were living there 2 out of the last 5 years, you can exclude $250,000 of capital gains each. Okay. So 250 plus 250 is 500,000. So if a spouse passes away, if they sell within 2 years, you can use yours and your spouse's exclusion. So that's an additional 500,000, right, on top of the 1.3 and the original basis. So about 2.2 million of this sale potentially would be tax-free. And the net left over would be about 500,000. That's potentially exposed to gains. So a couple things he could do. He could just pay the taxes on the 500,000, but it would be close to $200,000 in taxes. So probably more than he'd like to pay. He could do a qualified opportunity zone fund, right? That's a whole nother topic. If you want to learn more, we can do another topic on that. He could reinvest at $500,000, own real estate, right? He gets to defer those taxes till 2026, his 2026 filing. So that's basically when he files for 2027. As a financial advisor, I would take his 2.2 million and help him invest it and cover those taxes. But then that 500,000, if he leaves it in there for 10 years, all of that growth will we'll get a full step up in basis. So zero taxes on the growth of that 500,000.
Yep. So that opportunity zone is a pretty good strategy for that leftover exposed amount, and it could be left to the heirs.
Correct.
At that point, he'll be 105.
Correct. But
Hey, Kyle, I have a question.
I think this guy might outlive all of us. He is so sharp.
Probably.
Yeah, he's so sharp.
Hey,
Dean has a
question, Kyle. I have a question.
Sure.
Did you say that even though the wife passed away, that up until that 5 year time that she actually lived in the property, he can still get the $250,000 on her own occupant exemption?
If it's sold within 2 years of her passing.
Within 2
years.
years of her passing. Got it. Okay.
Yep.
So wow, I didn't know that. Thank you.
We're learning new stuff all the time,
All the
Every day.
right?
time.
Every
Yeah.
day.
So
Especially
that's
in this
huge.
area. Mhm.
It's huge, but I mean, it's kind of hard to be like, hey, I know your spouse just passed away. Do you want to sell your house, right? It's kind
Right.
of difficult. But he'd asked me, he's like, Kyle, I'm thinking about downsizing. This house is way too big. It was too big when my wife was here. Now it's definitely too big. I kind of want to sell this and get something smaller. What should I do? How much taxes will I pay? And I'm like, well, ideally you sell in the next 2 years. That's
Yeah.
going to maximize your tax-free exit of the equity.
Yeah.
Thank
Interesting.
you. Thank you all for being here. I know Dan
Yes.
had to hop off. I did provide some helpful links there. Mike, thanks for hanging in. If you have any questions, type them in the chat or you can come off mute.
Or send us an email at info@teamlally.com because we have a lot of information. Not to worry, we're going to send this back to everybody with the cliff notes, and you'll be able to review it if you don't have a photographic memory. But that is it. I like it when things end on time and we move on because people are busy.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody.
Appreciate it.
Aloha.
Thank you. Bye.
Aloha.